coming to Circle of Willis. It is also called as circulus arteriosus. How this is formed? We have already seen the basilar artery and the internal carotid artery. So it is the branches from this basilar artery and the internal carotid artery that get interconnected to one another at the base of the brain to form a six-sided polygon of arteries. That is our Circle of Willis. Here you can see this is the Circle of Willis. The most important thing is how to locate the Circle of Willis. So while doing the dissection, we should dissect out the brain along with the brainstem. Then only we will be able to evaluate the Circle of Willis. At the base of the brainstem, first identify the optic chiasma. It is very easy to identify the structure optic chiasma. So this is the optic chiasma you can see here, and the six-sided artery, that is our Circle of Willis, will be surrounding around the optic chiasma. So this what you are seeing is the Circle of Willis surrounding the optic chiasma. This is how we locate the Circle of Willis. So let's see how it is formed. This is the Circle of Willis that we have dissected in our mortuary. Let's see how it is formed. Anteriorly, we can see it is formed by the anterior cerebral artery, which are interconnected by the anterior communicating artery. This is our internal carotid artery that divides into the middle cerebral artery and the anterior cerebral artery. So the Circle of Willis is formed anteriorly by the anterior communicating artery as well as the anterior cerebral artery. Posteriorly, here we can see the basilar artery divide into posterior cerebral artery, the terminal branches. Then the posterior part of the Circle of Willis is formed by this posterior cerebral artery. And laterally on both sides we have the posterior communicating artery. This posterior communicating artery connects the internal carotid artery with the posterior cerebral artery. So this forms the six-sided polygon of arteries, that is our Circle of Willis. Let's see the branches of the Circle of Willis. Here also in the base of the brain you can see this. This is the vertebral artery joined to form the basilar artery. This is the internal carotid artery. It divides into the anterior cerebral and the middle cerebral artery. So to locate the Circle of Willis, we need to first see the optic chiasma, and surrounding that will be our Circle of Willis. Anteriorly formed by the anterior cerebral artery and the anterior communicating artery, posteriorly by the posterior communicating artery and the posterior cerebral artery, and on both sides we have the communicating arteries. Let's see the branches. It has two branches. It has the central branches as well as the cortical branches. Central branches are small branches that usually perforate the white matter and supplies the corpus striatum, the internal capsule and thalamus. Whereas this cortical branches, also called as the external branches, that run over the surface of the cerebrum and anastomoses freely. So whenever there is any block in the cortical branches of the Circle of Willis, it gives only rise to small infarct because they are interconnected, they are anastomosed with each other. Central branches is also divided into four groups. Let's see that. First one is the andromedial group of arteries. It includes the common named artery, that is the recurrent artery of Hubner. This is the recurrent branch of anterior cerebral artery that usually supplies the corpus striatum and the internal capsule. And on the androlateral branches, we have the artery called as Charcot artery or the lenticulostriae artery that forms the androlateral group of branches. Then we have the posterolateral group of branches that includes small arteries arising from the posterior cerebral artery, you can see here. And this includes the arteries that supplies the thalamogeniculate branches. And we have one more group, that is the posteromedial group of arteries. This goes and supplies the thalamus as well as the hypothalamus. So the Circle of Willis is having many cortical branches that anastomoses with each other as well as four groups of central branches.